For months, Ukraine made Russia bleed slowly. Long-range drones struck at the heart of Russia's oil industry, leaving behind a trail of fire and chaos. But the Kremlin believed the core of its power was safe. It was wrong. While Russian defenses hunted drones in the sky, something far deadlier was taking shape in the shadows. A weapon created in secret with a harmless name, but enough power to reach the unthinkable. Its name is Flamingo, and its first flight was a warning. For months, Ukraine turned the war into a slow hemorrhage for the Kremlin. Instead of direct confrontations, Kyiv chose to strike where it hurts most, the fuel that keeps the Russian army moving. More than a dozen refineries were hit by drone attacks, disrupting supply chains and forcing Moscow to deal with fires spreading across Russia. The result was devastating. 40% of the country's total refining capacity was crippled within weeks. These attacks struck directly at the logistical backbone of Russia's war machine. Every damaged refinery meant less fuel for tanks, aircraft, and military trucks. And for the first time since the invasion began, Putin's army had to face something it couldn't defeat with missiles: time. What shocked military analysts was the ineffectiveness of Russia's air defenses. Designed to intercept fighter jets and cruise missiles, those networks weren't prepared for swarms of small drones flying just a few feet above the ground, invisible to conventional radar. The result was a silent collapse. Watchtowers, radars, and anti-air batteries forced to react against targets that cost less than the fuel used to intercept them. Under pressure, Moscow began reallocating precious resources. Defense units once focused on the front lines were moved to protect pipelines, depots, and refineries. This redistribution opened gaps along the front and exposed something even more alarming. The Kremlin was now fighting a war on two fronts, and losing both. It was during a press conference in The Hague, alongside Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, that Volodymyr Zelensky let slip what many analysts now consider the first public hint about Ukraine's new secret project. He was answering questions about the recent attacks on Russian refineries and industrial centers when he said, calmly yet cryptically, "Based on these hits, people can understand where drones are being used and where they are not." To some, the phrase sounded ordinary, but to those familiar with the coded language of warfare, it was a veiled message. Zelensky wasn't talking about drones, he was referring to something that had already surpassed that level. A new kind of weapon, faster, deadlier, and something Moscow didn't even know how to classify yet. The message between the lines was clear. They weren't drones, they were missiles, and they're coming from farther than you think. Minutes after the conference, the quote went viral. The Kyiv Post published an article titled "Zelensky Slips Ukraine's New Aerial Game," suggesting the country had just debuted an entirely new weapon. Other outlets, such as Defense Express and Euromaidan Press, began cross-referencing recent attack data with fragments of Zelensky's statement. And something stood out. The latest targets were more than 900 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, well beyond the range of any known drone in Kyiv's arsenal. Days later, confirmation came from abroad. In a detailed report, The Economist cited Western intelligence sources revealing the name of the new system: FP-5 Flamingo. According to the document, it was a hybrid weapon developed with assistance from European partners, capable of combining the range of a tactical missile with the stealth of a drone. The name, Flamingo, sounded innocent, almost ironic, but for the Kremlin, it would mark the beginning of something far more ominous: the first Ukrainian weapon capable of making Moscow burn. The first confirmed trace of the Flamingo appeared where it all began, in Crimea. In the early hours of August 15, 2025, simultaneous explosions rocked Yevpatoria and Sevastopol. An FSB outpost, Russia's Federal Security Service, was completely destroyed, and two Raptor-class patrol boats were reduced to scrap metal in a matter of seconds. At first, analysts believed it was another attack using Neptune missiles, the same type that sank the cruiser Moskva. But the military outlet Militarny corrected that assumption days later. The impact marks, shrapnel dispersion pattern, and thermal radius captured by satellite sensors were all inconsistent with the Neptune. What struck the targets had greater range, a denser warhead, and a unique thermal signature. Based on the released imagery, experts concluded that the Flamingo had been used in combat for the first time. The strike wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a live fire test. And the results were astonishing. Satellite photos showed surgical precision, every impact landing within 2 meters of the programmed target, something previously unthinkable for Ukrainian missiles. More than just destroying assets, the Flamingo sent a message. Crimea, once seen as Russia's untouchable fortress, was now vulnerable. But the operation on the peninsula was only the beginning. In the following weeks, refineries in Ryazan, Syzran, and Nizhny Novgorod were hit with the same accuracy. Most reports attributed the attacks to conventional drones, but range analysis told a different story. To strike targets more than 1,000 kilometers away, Ukraine would need a platform with unprecedented endurance, something like the Flamingo. An animated map tracing those trajectories would show the scale of the feat. Launched from central Ukraine, the missile would have crossed Russian airspace undetected, piercing layered defenses across multiple regions before striking the industrial heart of the country. And while the world scrambled to understand what had just happened, Kyiv remained silent. No statements, no confirmations, only results. That's the new Ukrainian doctrine, OPSEC, operational security. After 2023, when premature optimism gave Russia time to prepare for the counteroffensive, the lesson was learned. Now, Ukraine strikes first and talks later. If the Flamingo had a business card, it would read extreme range, heavy payload, and terrifying stealth. The pieces of this technical puzzle become clearer when we look at its known characteristics. The missile has an estimated range of more than 3,000 kilometers, enough to reach targets as far as the Ural Mountains. The warhead's power is another shocking detail. About 1,150 kilograms of explosive payload, more than twice that of an American Tomahawk, and nearly 30 times the weight of an Iranian Shahed. Visually, it is the difference between a tactical blast and a detonation capable of wiping an entire industrial complex off the map. But what truly makes the Flamingo a nightmare for Russian defenses is its intelligent stealth. It can fly at just 50 meters of altitude, using terrain and ground clutter to mask itself from radars. It can also change course in flight, which makes its trajectory extremely hard to predict and intercept. It is the kind of weapon that turns any radar into a blind system. The Flamingo did not spring fully formed from futuristic laboratories. It is the product of improvisation and genius. Ukrainian engineers combined old Soviet engines, available in stockpiles inherited from the USSR era, with modern carbon fiber airframes, creating a missile that is light, durable, and cheap. That is why many call the project a true Frankenstein creation, a hybrid of old parts and new technology, built to work with whatever is available in the midst of war, and that is precisely its strength. The Flamingo's estimated cost is about 1/4 of an American Tomahawk. That allows Ukraine to apply the concept of affordable mass, launching multiple missiles simultaneously to overwhelm enemy defenses at a sustainable price. In other words, quantity and quality working together. And the name. That curious detail comes from a production mistake. The first batch came out with a pinkish hue, the result of paint applied incorrectly to the fuselage. The nickname Flamingo arose among technicians and stuck. An almost ironic name for a weapon that, instead of dancing, sets the skies over Russia on fire. The Flamingo isn't just another weapon in the arsenal, it's a turning point. To grasp its true significance, you only need to listen to those who understand war at the strategic level, like General David Petraeus. According to analysts like him, the emergence of a missile with inter-regional range, a heavy warhead, and a low flight profile rewrites both tactical and strategic rules. Petraeus summed up what many military experts are already beginning to admit. The Flamingo could be a game changer, capable of having a massive impact on the battlefield by forcing the enemy to drastically rethink its posture, logistics, and resource allocation. The first impact is practical. When an adversary demonstrates the ability to strike industrial and logistical centers thousands of kilometers away, priorities shift. Garrisons and front lines lose resources to the protection of refineries, depots, and urban centers, all to reduce domestic risks. That drains time, material, and morale. A missile that forces the Kremlin to spread its defenses across such a vast territory isn't just destroying targets, it's multiplying the pressure on Russia's entire war machine. The second impact is industrial and financial. The Flamingo's production has moved past the artisanal stage. Ukrainian defense workshops and manufacturers have accelerated from producing 1 unit per day to much more ambitious goals, plans to reach up to 7 missiles a day. This escalation turns the Flamingo from a unique prototype into a weapon of mass employment, completely changing the logic of attrition. If you can produce enough of them, you can sustain a campaign of strikes that continuously saturate defenses and cripple infrastructure. And there's a political and economic vision behind it all. Zelensky has been promoting the idea of turning Ukraine's industrial capacity into an export platform, weapons produced at scale that could help fund the war effort. The logic is simple and ruthless: transform a national defense asset into a source of revenue and influence. If the Flamingo becomes a sought-after item in the global arms market, it won't just help Ukraine win on the battlefield. It will finance its ability to keep fighting. In the end, the Flamingo shifts three key variables: military capability, war economy, and political calculus. And when a single system changes all three at once, calling it a game changer isn't an exaggeration. It's a cold assessment of the new balance of power. The emergence of this new weapon has redefined the very concept of Ukrainian firepower. A missile with a range of over 3,000 kilometers, a warhead weighing more than a ton, low production cost, and stealth capability powerful enough to cross Russian territory undetected. In just a few weeks, it turned what was once a war of resistance into a war of reach. Russia now faces a strategic dilemma with no easy solution: defend its front lines in Ukraine and risk watching its own territory go up in flames, or redirect its defenses to protect cities and industries thousands of kilometers away, leaving dangerous gaps on the battlefield. Either way, every new Flamingo strike delivers the same message to the Kremlin: the age of safety within its borders is over. The Flamingo represents innovation born from scarcity, the ability of a besieged nation to create something that defies a superpower. Ukraine didn't just endure, it reinvented warfare. With creativity, engineering, and determination, it turned an uneven battlefield into a laboratory of modern deterrence. And in the end, the meaning of this weapon goes far beyond its physical destruction. The Flamingo is more than a missile. It's a statement, a promise that the war will no longer be fought only on Ukrainian soil. Now, Russia knows that no place is truly safe. If you want to keep following the secret operations, the weapons that are changing this war, and the behind the scenes of the conflict, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And if the Flamingo surprised you, wait until you see what Ukraine did to Putin's navy. In the next video, we show how an attack 1,000 kilometers away turned Russia's so-called safe zone into a true graveyard of warships. Click now and watch. Putin's safe zone turns into a graveyard, Ukraine hits. Warship 1,000 kilometers deep inside Russia.